Hello, everybody. Welcome to Week 7, Round 2 of Team Draft Super League. I'm Reed Duke here with Paul Reidsel. What's up, Paul? How you doing?
Good, Reed. I'm happy to be here with you. Congratulations again on another Team Grand Prix victory. Very, very impressive. I think now undisputed #1 in the next power rankings.
Well, thank you. It's very, very nice of you to say that. It's good to remember that your team is no slouches either. For those that don't know, the Scottsdale Foundation, Paul's team has had a lot of success in Team Grand Prix that the Peach Garden Oath didn't attend. I think his 2 finals appearances in the San Jose tournaments.
Yes, that's right. A first and a second in San Jose, which I guess is just too far from Las Vegas for most of you to. But we're hoping that we catch you on the downswing, as you guys are just so full of yourselves from the championship trophy that you overlooked us on this Tuesday night.
Could be. Do you think tonight's going to be the night? How'd the draft go for you?
Interesting. So I believe you were on my left, and
that's right.
I tried a Ben Stark strategy where instead of drafting a Magic deck, I just started taking cards at random, so that you couldn't get a read on what I was doing. I don't know what colors you are. You could be anything because I was everything for a while. So my deck is pretty medium, but I'm hoping that yours is as well. So I don't know. What do you think?
I ended up pretty happy with my deck. You did make it tough on me, and I danced around a little bit, but I settled in like mostly blue with either red or black or both. But I did get lucky with 2 blue rares. We're going to have deck lists by the time we play each other. So I have a Drake Haven and a pull from tomorrow, and then just a bunch of cycling cards.
Yeah, both of which were passed to you though, right? Those weren't, you didn't open either of those cards.
Right. I got the pull in pack 2 and the Drake Haven in pack 3.
Right. And for me, I had a feeling that you were going to be blue. I did take a little bit of blue from you, but when I opened the Drake Haven in pack 3, I already had 6 cartouches at that point and opened a red Trop. So there really wasn't a decision for me to make.
Wow, so it sounds like you have a medium deck where you'll very likely win if you draw your trial.
Right, I should win when I draw my trial, and I have obviously other good cards as well, but obviously I couldn't take anything over a trial when you have that many cartouches.
Yeah. So I'm going to guess then that you finished in red and black?
Yeah, I'm red and black. I actually I dabbled. I thought for a bit I was going to be black-blue, but I got a couple Thresher Lizards and there were some red cartouches, and I didn't really see a lot of the 2-drops in black and blue, so I ended up going into red-black, and my deck doesn't have a focus. Like I'm not really aggressive enough to be an aggro deck. I'm not control enough to be a control deck, but I just have slightly above average card quality and nice 2-color cartouche. So.
All right. Well, we'll see. My deck and Paul's deck in action maybe an hour or so from now. But for now, we're going to see our teammates battle it out, and the match is ready. So let's head down. So we're looking down on Owen Turtenwald versus David Williams. Dave's deck he's got an Abzan going on here.
It's actually it's a white-black deck with 1 forest and a white-green dual land for the Honored Hydra. So
okay,
yeah.
I had figured Dave as white-black because I passed him a pretty late Wayward Servant, which I always hate to do. The good news about that is I think Dave might have used a couple early picks on blue cards and then switched out, but probably ended up in a decent white-black deck, and Owen was behind him also drafting white-black, so that's never ideal.
Yeah, I'm really curious to find out what hue he is. I'm guessing some sort of red-blue action, but it's hard to know.
He was blue and white, he said.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, when I passed you the Wayward Servant, I didn't want to pass you any white cards, and I I was trying to take note of all the white cards I passed you, and it wasn't a long list, so that makes sense because it was getting cut from Huey. So
Yeah, I felt like I didn't see a white card the whole draft. I mean, the two players on my left didn't pass me anything in Pack 2, and with Huey being white and you taking a few white cards, that was just the one color that was completely out of the question for me.
Dave's draw not really coming together here. Really needs to find Swamp on this next turn.
You know what he really needs is he needs Owen to play Miasmic Mummy so that the Honored Hydra can become the undercosted Roar of the Worm.
Yeah. Fortunately.
But yeah, Owen curving out nicely, but with pretty horrendously bad creatures so far. The Grimstrider, I guess, will become a threat once Owen can play out a couple more cards.
Wow, really nice draw there from
Yeah.
Going to let him dump his whole hand.
And then attack into the 4-power Spearmaster with the 5/5 Grimstrider.
Dave's going to be faced with a decision point already. Does he want to trade 2 of his own resources for 1 Grimstrider?
I think the answer is yes. Well, maybe not, but in a situation like this where you're sort of drawing out of a mana screw, you want to keep things as clean as possible. So my first instinct was to go for the trade 2 for 1 here, but I guess having Edifice of Authority to lock down Owen's biggest creature changes the equation a little bit.
Yeah, Owen with another kind of beautiful draw there of white cartouche, which is again going to let him play a 1 plus a 4, empty his hand, and diversify his threat portfolio versus Edifice of Authority, and just puts Dave in kind of a horrific spot here where even if Dave were to now draw out of this and find a swamp, I think he might be too far behind. He's just going to eat 8 damage here, 9 damage.
Yeah, I mean, he can profitably block a Sacred Cat, but how profitable is that even really?
Yeah. Magic Online tortures him with a swamp about 3 turns after it would have done him good.
So here we get to finally see the players' decks, although perhaps the viewers got to see these decks during deck building. Paul and I haven't yet.
Yeah, and you see that between the 2 of them, they have been making some very, very good white cards. But each of them independently has a fairly weak lower half of their deck.
Wow, so Dave has a zombies deck with the Wayward Servant that I mentioned passing to him, but he also has Lord of the Accursed, which, given that Owen is also black, I expect that must have been one of Dave's 3 first picks.
You can't really see the soft middle there. The Wasteland Scorpions and Owen's deck. Not
yeah,
really.
It looks like Owen also has a Lord. He has a Cursed Minotaur, a couple of Wasteland Scorpions. So, Paul, Edifice of Authority is a card we talked a little bit about on our team forum earlier today. What do you think of that card in general, and what do you think of it in Dave's deck?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good card. I think it's a card that I like in all decks. Obviously, it's better in a defensive or slower or ramp-based deck. It's also good in decks with sweepers where you can kind of force your opponent to commit multiple threats to the board. It's also good in decks, for example, with decks like cards like Soul Stinger that are good at dealing with kind of ground creatures, handling maybe that 1 evasive threat or the 1 exert creature or something of that nature, or the 1 first striker. So. Look, it's no Ring of Gix to date myself a little bit, but certainly a card that I'm happy to have, happy to take highly, and I don't think I've ever cut it from a deck.
I actually first picked it in the semifinals of Grand Prix Cleveland, the first team draft, and I picked it from out of a pretty strong pack. I think it was over Electrify, which not necessarily a pick I would make in a regular 8-man draft where plan A is just get a nice focused aggro deck. But it's a card that I'm really afraid of in team draft when the power level's a little bit lower and the games tend to go a little bit longer. Just having also a colorless card gives you advantage in the drafting portion. But yeah, just a real nice card that gives you a lot of control over the game.
Yeah, colorless card is great, and part and parcel of that is that you also have the information that you've passed an electrify to the person to your left. So,
Right. Yep.
if you so choose, you can then move into red, or at least take some red cards from the person to your left. Especially in a situation where electrify is kind of head and shoulders above the next best option at that mana cost.
Great point. Meanwhile, in the game, Owen started with a mulligan to 5. His first two hands just didn't have enough lands, but he's drawn out of it very well, having assembled a little bit of an early defense and now a monument with a couple creatures left over in hand. Dave's had a good curve out too, but we actually have a game here.
Yeah, so this blighted bat's going to have to do some work. So it looks like once Owen gets down his top crop entangler, we're going to be at somewhat of a board stall situation in which you have to favor the Oketra's Monument, although it being up 2 cards and up 10 life, it's anybody's game.
My absolute nightmare scenario of Amonkhet Limited is when my opponent plays turn 3 Oketra's Monument, and then they miss a land drop shortly after that. I mean, the monuments are cards they seem like they should be fair. You play them out in the mid game, you've got 2, maybe 3 creatures in reserve. But when you just know your opponent's gonna be playing 1 or 2 creatures every turn for the rest of the game, it's a nightmare. And that's Owen hasn't missed a land drop yet, but when he played the Oketra's Monument, his hand was just all creatures. So pretty good spot for him.
This is kind of a huge spot here. Interesting attack by Owen, which allows his top crop elite to be vulnerable to the counters from Soul Stinger. So I'm not sure kind of what the thought process is there, if he felt like he had to be aggressive, but it's going to allow Dave's Blighted Bat to continue its assault.
Yeah, now that might have been Owen might have hoped that some percentage of the time Dave would make the choice to put the counters on the Grim Strider and he could blink it with the Vizier.
Mm-hmm.
But I think your analysis is right that Dave, from Dave's perspective, getting the flyer off the table is the most important. Maybe Owen was just thinking he's going to have to get through the Soul Stinger sooner or later anyway.
Yep. What do you think about the Vizier of Deferment?
I think it's quite a good card, and it even goes up in value when you have Oketra's Monument.
Yep.
Reducing the cost and giving you an extra token at instant speed.
It's actually one of my favorite cards in Amonkhet. I rate that card very, very highly. I think that when between cartouches and how valuable a lot of the tricks are in this format, the ability to attack with an exert creature and reset it. There's just so many different functions that the card has that I like it quite a bit and was upset to have to pass one.
Owen's still in a tough spot here. The Lord has cut his clock from 3 turns to 2, with the Blighted Bat now being a 3-power flyer. Owen can buy 1 turn by blinking it with Vizier of Deferment, but he was really hoping to get a little bit of more value out of that Vizier. And then the question of actually killing Dave is a tough one, as he's still at 20 with multiple chump blockers in that Sacred Cat.
Yep.
Okay, we have a result in. My teammate William Jensen has defeated Matt Sperling, so Peach Garden Oath is now up 1-0. If I had to guess, I would predict this one goes to game 3, though.
Interesting attack here from Dave. He obviously is sensing some sort of a trap with 5 mana untapped. Obviously, there's just so many things a black-white deck can have with 5 mana untapped and, an Oketra's Monument in play and just all of that. So elects to not send in his Watchers of the Dead. And it would have ended up, trading off for a Vizier. So
I liked Owen's precision with the Magic Online interface there. He even went through the no blockers step. Do you have any effects before he flashed in the Vizier? Perhaps Dave going to jump the gun with a pump spell, but
do you think he blinked his eyes vulnerably and said, I guess just 3? Just 3?
Yeah, he picked up his pen maybe.
Owen, dutifully continuing the assault brings Dave down to 17, but is going to need to find something next turn to deal with lighted bat.
Yeah, still completely out of range of killing Dave, even if he was to draw some kind of pump all your creatures effect. Wow, so maybe the key moment of that game was the Soul Stinger being able to finish off the Crop Elite. It was Owen's only defense against flying that he drew that game. Although it is true that Lord of the Accursed could give the Blighted Bat menace. So unclear how it would have played out if Owen had been more conservative.
And obviously, it didn't happen to work out. But from Owen's perspective, you're already down to 5 cards. You're already way down on life total and resources, and you know that Dave has additional cards in hand that could be basically anything. So maybe you're thinking that your best way to get back to parity or even advantage in the game is for Dave to make some kind of insane triple block of your Grimstrider and blow him up with the Vizier, or as you mentioned, choose some kind of different target with the Soul Stinger token. So it's really an understandable play by Owen, and obviously the fact that he didn't draw any answer to the flyer after that, made it not work out.
Man, look, Owen's got a whole green deck in his sideboard up there.
Yep. Owen will get to go first for game 3 with the Sacred Cat deck and has a very, very nice hand, but so does Dave. So both players should be able to kind of do what they want. We had game 1 with Dave suffering some mana problems, and game 2 with Owen with the double mulligan. Game 3, both players kind of have their strategy that they can develop here. So.
Now, do you think Owen should Mighty Leap the Sacred Cat before he attacks or after Dave blocks here?
Both players, I think, are more interested in getting that Sacred Cat to just trade for a resource and then bring it back as a Zombone.
Okay, I see. Dave took the hit there, not willing to risk his Wayward Servant.
Yeah, I think that he, with Soul Stinger in his hand and with the Anointer Priest dealing 1 damage, I think Dave values leaving Wayward Servant on the board too highly, and it's hard to fault him for that decision. Interesting choice here to play the Miasmic Mummy over the Spearmaster. Dave, I think being on the draw and with having the Wayward Servant, is interested in playing more of a control, grindy kind of game.
Owen discarded Supernatural Stamina. That's the type of moment where my playstyle diverges from Owen's a bit. He's usually just wants to focus on the task at hand and curve out. But in a spot like that, I would always discard the Swamp and keep my my resources for the long run.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you in the situation, especially given the fact that neither player is really far advantaged right now. So it seemed to me like Owen would have some time, both have some time to get the Crop Elite online, and then on the flip side, that curving into it, just not that important. That the Crop Elite is unlikely to just run away with the game if you put it out on turn 4. So I agree with you there. And of course, we're able to look like geniuses here as Owen starts to flood out a little bit. Of course, if he had bricked off and drawn 2 more 4-drops, we would be fools.
Right. Ooh, the Edifice was a big draw for Dave in an otherwise pretty stalled board. This is going to give him a huge advantage.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly the situation that we discussed when we first brought the card up, which is that Dave's superior ground force is holding off Owen's his weenies, but the Crop Elite threatens to be kind of a major threat in the air, both just plinking for 2 a turn and then threatening to exert. But the Edifice is going to handle that threat and continue to build brick counters, which will then allow Dave to turn to the offensive when he wants to.
Now, Edifice is essentially the perfect card for this type of situation because imagine Dave had drawn Final Reward instead. He'd have this 1 removal spell in his hand, and he'd be like, should I use it on the Crop Elite? I'm at 20. Maybe I should take some damage and see. But what Edifice represents is it's basically a removal for whatever Owen's best creature on the table is. and it continues to be a removal spell for whatever best creature Owen might play in the future. So there's no qualms about deploying it and starting to use it right away. You don't have to plan for the long term in that way.
It's a great point. Now, Dave, interestingly enough, last turn chose not to play the Scattered Groves, feeling like, again, sort of a divergence from Owen's strategy, where he wants to leave himself the optionality of, do I want this 5th mana, do I need this green mana, or do I want to leave the ability to cycle the Scattered Groves on the table? And he again is playing for, I think, somewhat of a longer game. And we see this turn, well, I guess the Edifice still only has 2 brick counters, so he wouldn't have had an attack with the Blighted Bat anyway.
So what Owen really needs to happen here is he needs Dave to make a reckless attack where he can get some value off of flashing in the start-finish.
Mm-hmm.
This is a board state where Owen is just squarely losing, and he needs something to happen in order to get himself back in this game. So it looks like he's going to try to use Jeru's Resolve to take out that Spearmaster. That's a fine trade for Owen. Not terribly exciting, but it's a good step one.
Yep. I think Dave now will play that Scattered Groves, yeah.
And part of playing out the land there is, maybe if he didn't have the Edifice of Authority, he would just try to be patient, wait to draw a 5th land. But I think he figures that since he wants to effectively be using that card every single turn of the game, it's as though he has one less land in play, and he doesn't mind playing out the 5th, because if he draws his 6th, then he can cast his 5-drop and still use Edifice, or if he draws other cards, he can do everything he wants to all on the same turn.
I think there's also a thought process here that when you're talking about having a card like Honored Hydra in your deck and only one other forest, the chances that you might need the green mana from Scattered Groves could be a factor. And then also, you're playing a 16-land deck. You've already discarded one of your lands to Miasmic Mummy. The chance of suffering kind of debilitating flood is pretty low.
Really interesting spot here. Owen able to get value out of Mighty Leap, which otherwise would be a pretty tough card to use in the face of Edifice of Authority. Mm-hmm. But Dave used the Edifice to make Owen's flying creature unable to block, and then Owen saw a moment where, I can cash this Mighty Leap in to remove a pretty annoying threat from the battlefield.
This next turn for Dave is going to be pretty interesting, as he is going to have the ability to, if he wants to, Edifice the Anointer Priest and then put through a combat that's going to be very difficult for what he sees on Owen's board to block, and then potentially have a post-combat supply caravan. I think with both players at 21 life, it's pretty tempting to continue to maybe trade off some resources, but Dave elects for the more conservative route of locking down the top crop elite. And he actually goes with a middle ground here. So his play is to attack with Soul Stinger, get himself a tapped creature, which lets him trigger the supply caravan, and maybe is less of an all-in or ambitious play, and is more just continuing to go wide and build his board.
Yep, nice turn for Dave.
Good draw there from Owen, as now Dave's has 2 things to think about with the Edifice, as the top crop elite continues to be the only evasive threat on the board, but Grimstrider, with Owen having only 1 card in his hand, really rates to be a 6/6 during most combats, which is much bigger than anything Dave can present, and he'd have to get into a serious kind of combat with it in order to consider taking it down.
Funny that we saw this exact same configuration of creatures last game, of Owen having Grimstrider and Talcrop Elite against Soul Stinger. It's not that Dave can answer the Soul Stinger answer the Grimstrider easily, but he can get value in a different way by trading his Soul Stinger for a chump block and a kill on one of Owen's other relevant threats.
Yeah, it's difficult to say if Dave could press the action here more. I mean, obviously, he had the 1 turn he could have locked down the Anointer Priest and at least forced Owen into maybe making some trades. But I think he figures with the Edifice in play and the Wayward Servant that he at least has a marginal advantage on board, and is willing to kind of continue to pursue that. So both players just looking for kind of a haymaker type of draw that will really tilt the action in their favor.
So, Paul, if you were in Dave's seat, would Owen casting a creature like Grim Strider, would that tip his hand in any way? Would you be thinking like, okay, that card in his hand is probably not a land because now he has incentive to play it out? Maybe it is an instant that I should be playing around?
Possibly. I mean, except for the fact that none of Dave's creatures are even close to threatening the Grim Strider. So 5/5 already is kind of the king of the world here. So I think against most players, yes, I would have that instinct. Against Owen, he's certainly capable of keeping a land in his hand in the situation as a bluff when he knows that the size of Grim Strider is enough for it to eat most of Dave's creatures anyway. And I think now with Dave finding kind of a chip away kind of attack, Owen feels like time to fire off that start to finish and maybe take out either Supply Caravan or Wayward Servant this turn. Interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, it's tough to use the start finish on Supply Caravan, and this is actually pretty important that this is round 1 instead of round 2, because if Owen had Dave's deck list in front of him, which deck list will be public next round, he could look through and be like, okay, I have to save my start finish for this Archfiend of Ifnir or whatever it might be, some big like unique creature. But not knowing what Dave might or might not have makes it a tougher decision.
Wow, so he's actually a really aggressive approach. He's going to exert his top crop elite and force Dave into making some blocks. Interesting play.
Wow, Owen saw a good opportunity here with Dave having only one creature greater than 2 toughness untapped. And he's more easily able to make this attack because the Sacred Cats are going to give him 4 life back for his troubles. So yeah, this is a pretty interesting spot. I think it's a little bit of desperation for Owen, as he's not going to win the game or come close to winning the game this turn, but he's just thinking, well, if I do nothing, I'm losing, so let me try to make something happen here.
Yep. And Dave has many options here. He could take 11, and that would be kind of a fine play. He could do this and trade off for a lot of Owen's resources. He's going to block all the vigilance creatures here, which is certainly one way to go.
Sparring Mummy, pretty cool here as it allows Dave to make an all-out attack and then untap some blockers for the backswing.
Yeah, and he certainly is going to attack with everything here. Is now with the exerted top crop elite, he's not threatened with nearly as dangerous of an attack on Owen's next turn, so he's going to get in for a good chunk of damage.
These are the key draw steps for these players. If Owen finds nothing but a land here, he's going to be in a very bad position. But if he can pull, maybe a removal spell or a big creature, something that makes multiple guys with the Oketra's Monument in play, not what he needed.
Yeah, a creature would have been beautiful on multiple levels, as he has the Anointer Priest and the Oketra's Monument, so he's got the combination in play. But yeah, as you said, unfortunately just finds a land and holds it in play, as we mentioned, or holds it in hand, as we mentioned earlier, a play that Owen is definitely capable of, even with Grim Strider in play. Dave really putting some pressure on Owen here. Wants to see if he can trade off some resources now before Owen's, top crop elite threatens to exert and put Dave in a difficult back foot on Owen's next combat step. Dave finds a really nice card in his own top crop elite here.
Wow. One of the few cards that might have kept Owen in this game.
Yeah,
Supply Caravan, if he plays his cards right, can produce 3 creatures. That's 2 life off Anointer Priests, a couple more blockers.
Wow, what an insane block it would be if Dave blocked here. I don't even know if it's right, even if he knew he had Supply Caravan, but it would be kind of a filthy block. Although this next combat is still going to be very difficult. as Dave's almost certainly going to attack with everything. Lock down the Grimstrider, attack with everything. There's going to be a lot of chumping for Owen. Wow, interesting. So I guess Dave feels like, having drawn that winged shepherd, he no longer needs to press the action at all. That he's now far enough ahead that he doesn't want to risk Owen drawing something crazy like Catcher's Name.
I think what it is he didn't want to exert the Talkrop Elite this turn, because next turn he can win with just 7 power flying via Talkrop Elite and Winged Shepherd.
Mm-hmm. Great point. And now, unfortunately, Owen can't play his safe. Oh, no, because he can, because of the life gain from the Anointer Priest. For a second, I thought he would have to hold it in his hand as a bluff, but I guess that... So he's just going to attack for 5 here then again.
Yeah, no need to rush things.
Yep. Dave evens the score.
All right, so 1-1 team match score. Saw David Williams take down Owen Turtenwald in 3 games. So they both had black-white decks. Dave was passing to Owen, so traditional knowledge would be that configuration benefits Dave. I know Owen was like kind of lukewarm about his deck. He's like, yeah, I built something, but it's not exciting. How'd your teammates feel about their decks?
Yeah, so I was more excited about our decks than our teammates were. I thought that Matt had a good version of a blue-green-red ramp deck with the high quality ramp spells, not the bad ramp spells, and then the cards that you want to ramp into, things like Sandworm Convergence and Heaven Earth. And then 2 Spring to Mind, which allows him to draw more cards and does the ramping and the fixing. I think that my deck is, if I draw Trial, I'm going to look brilliant. If I don't draw Trial, I'm probably a 45% deck, so I have to draw a red Trial a lot. And I thought Dave's deck was pretty good, honestly. It's not as focused and as tight as some of the black-white zombies decks that you see in maybe an 8-person draft. But for a team draft, I thought it was a pretty good approximation of what he's trying to do. And of course, Dave is the master at taking resources away from his opponents during the draft, which I'm sure he did a lot of as well. So. We didn't feel like a big favorite or a big underdog. We thought it was going to be very close, and certainly the first 2 matches have borne that out.
I think it's going to be close as well. Well, that's it for round 1. Paul and I will be playing next round, so you'll have 2 brand new commentators in to walk you through it. But in the meantime, let's cut to ads and see you later.
Looking for a challenge? Magic Online offers